Yo, welcome back. We're now looking at class-based view. This is a huge improvement on the function-based view. And in fact, I'm promising you that you will love it. What we'll be doing here is to improve our code, basically, or refactor it as the case may be. So let's go back. I feel like we've already done the hard work. So what we'll be doing now would be here in the class-based views tutorial. You could check it out. I'll show you how everything comes together. So the main thing is that we're converting everything we've done into a class. So here they have their own to be snippet list, snippet detail. We'll just do our own thing. So what it means is we'll no longer be needing this API decorator here. So we'll get rid of it. Okay. We'll now change this to class like that, and we are calling it students. That's just it, students, like that. But what we now need is the API view, which is this. So we import it from views. So let's copy it and paste it here. All right, because we'll be extending it here, API view. And then we'll now be writing individual functions inside of the class. So here's what's going on here. For example, there's a function to get, there's a function to post. So instead of doing the normal if requires dot method, stuff like that, we'll just be converting everything to this. So I could just copy this line like so. It takes in 3 parameters, which is self, format, and the last one, which is request. Okay, so this is for get. So we could do the same thing for the post like so. So we'll just change this to posts like that. Okay, let's make sure this colon is here, and once you have this, every other thing should be the same. So like they have here, every other thing is the same. So we'll come back here and we'll just do the same thing for this other part. So let's also say class like that, and we are saying student detail. It takes in API view 2. Make sure I put the colon here, and inside of here we want to define a function. So let's define a function and say student detail. So student detail like that. It takes in 2 parameters. So the first one is self, and the second one is the pk. So inside of here we'll just return the student like that. We're not returning this is just it basically. So we'll now come down here and do exactly what we have done here too. So we'll copy this line, paste it here. So instead of get, we'll just do a get method. So automatically it recognizes what we want to do. Now instead of this student detail here, we'll now call it as a function. So we'll do a self dot student detail like that. So this is exactly what they have done here. So I'll just show you. So here is it. So here's the function get object, and so when you come down here you do a self dot get object. So you just make sure you pass in the primary key. All right, so inside of here we want to add in the pk. So you notice that here too they have the pk. So the difference between this and this is that there's a pk here, which is the primary key. Okay, so let's make sure we add our own pk here. So pk, like I told you, basically everything is the same. All that changes is just these few things that makes the difference. Okay, we're just calling this function that is here and we're passing the pk. Okay, so besides that, all other things are the same. So we'll just copy this too and put it for here and convert this to puts like so. Then same thing that we've done here. Anywhere we see the student detail, we just change it and call the function that we have created. Of course, if this is a bit confusing, then that means you need to go and maybe refreshing or learn how classes work. All right, so we're doing this again for delete. Paste it like this and delete. Everything we are doing is basically the same thing. So let's call the function as we did before. So once you call the function and do the dot delete, everything should work the same. So if you try it now, it wouldn't work exactly the same. So let's save this and try it and let me do a refresh. So you see we should get an error. You'll notice that once you call, it goes off for a while. It's not working exactly as it should be. Okay. Let's check our terminal and see what's going on in the terminal there. All right. So you see, it's telling us that cannot import students from students app.views. The reason is because the way we are to handle the URLs is now different from what we had before. All right. So at this point, we are now importing students, and we're importing student details. Notice that these ones now are capitalized. Okay. Now we'll come back here, and instead of students here, we'll do student dot as view like this, and same thing for the student details. We'll copy paste like this and do a dot as view like so. So once we do this, we make sure everything is properly formatted, save it, and notice that the error is gone. So this time around, when we go back and we do a refresh, it doesn't go off for a while like it was. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. So let's go back and do a refresher and check out what we have done. All right, so remember that what we just did was just to like refactor or do a bit of an upgrade on what we already have and make our code more cleaner, more containerized, stuff like that. This may not look so different from the function-based view, but it gives us an edge, which I'll be showing you in a bit. But I just want to make sure that everything is working exactly as it should be. So let's add someone here. So let's add Njoku. All right, and let's make sure we get rid of the ID and ng like that, and do a post. So this works exactly as we would want it to be. Now let's try to get this particular student 5. Hit enter, and we have it here. We could do an update to this. So let's copy paste this inside of here, get rid of this, and then let's just add a few numbers here just to make sure that it's different. Make a put, and you see it has updated. And when we try to delete, it goes off, which shows everything is working perfectly as it should be. This is cute, this is beautiful. But like I told you, the class-based view is not so different if we stop at this point. So what really makes it different is mixins. I'll show you this in a bit. So we'll just scroll down here, and you see what we call mixins. Now with mixins, we are able to make our code very short than what you already have here, and you'll be surprised. I'll be showing you this in a minute. We're able to make our code shorter. Here it tells us that the operations, that's the create, retrieve, update, delete operation that we have been using, are very similar to each other. So if they are very similar to each other, how then do we just get rid of the extra code that we have been using? Okay, so that's where mixins come in. So for this to work, we just need to do a little more of refactor. All right, so first things first, we need to import mixins and generics from the REST framework. So let's come back here, go to the top here, and from REST framework, let's go up here. We already have REST framework here, so let's import mixins and import generics. So instead of API view this time around, we'll be importing the mixins. So doing mixins the list mode list mode mixin, create mode mixin, then we'll now do the generic API view instead of the regular API view. All right, so I could just copy what we have here instead of typing it out. So I'll just copy everything inside of here like this and paste it inside of here. So recall that everything we are doing at this point, we are doing it from this tutorial class-based view. All right, then the next thing we want to take care of is two things: the query sets and then the serializers here. So the query set is basically getting everything in the database, and here the serializer is just, of course, the serializer. Basically, that's just it. So what we could do is also to copy these two lines like that. So once we copy it, we paste it in here. Now, just in case you didn't notice, we have two things that is being imported here. The list mode mixin and the create mode mixin, which is a redefinition of these two functions. So for this function, recall that it gets everything inside of the inside of the database, and for this function it adds to the database. So this is the list mode and this is the create mode. So inside of here we'll paste in these two lines of code and then update it. So this snippet here is supposed to be our model. So we'll do student, which we got from our model here. All right, and here is our serializer. That is just it. So keep this at query set and keep this at serializer class. This is how you make sure that everything is uniform. Then when we come back here, we just copy these two. These two are basically the same thing. The only difference is the verbs here. All right. So it still takes the self request, but this time around it takes args and quags. So this for arguments and keywords arguments. So these are basic Python. So let's come in here. Now instead of these two functions, let's paste this as a replacement. Make sure this is properly aligned. So what's going on here? We are redefining everything we have done before. So instead of having the long get function where we specify everything, we just pass in this small function and everything is working as it should be. Now let's also refactor the second one here. We're refactoring the second one here. So for us to refactor the second one, we're also doing the same thing. All right, and I'll paste it in so that you see what we're saying. So you override this. The retrieve mode mixin, update mode mixin, and the destroy mode mixin. So for the retrieve mode, it retrieves one item from the database. For the update mode, it updates a particular item, and the destroy mode destroys that particular item. It is that simple. Now for this, we'll also need to do the same thing that we've done here, which is to get all like this. All right. So let's place this at the top here. Make sure it is properly aligned. So that's just it. So you see it's snippet.object.all, which is the same thing they did at the top here. We just need to have access to the data in the database and then the serializer class, basically. Then you can just copy this. This is the same for any mixin that you want to do. So I'll just overwrite everything that I have here. So I just overwrite this, paste it. So once you paste it, make sure this is properly aligned. And once you have this is all. So like I told you, by default, the class based view may not differ so much from what you have in the function. So you might be wondering, why should I use the class based view? But the class based view gives you an edge. It gives you the possibility of cleaning up your code and using a more organized code like what the mixins give us here. All right. So once we've done this, the next thing that we want to do is to, of course, go through our test again. But here's what mixin do, and of course I'll still be showing you an extra thing that you can do using the class-based class-based view. So give me a minute to be coming back to generic views. So now that we have this, fingers crossed, everything should still work exactly as it is from the beginning. So we refresh and it still works. But notice this time around that it is not just the way the raw data was before. Initially it was just this raw data. In fact, the raw data this time around comes with like a placeholder, which is beautiful. But this time around we now have a HTML form given to us. So let's try to work with this, and about a very genius guy. Post it and it updates exactly as we want, or create it exactly as we want. Okay, so this is number 6. So let's retrieve number 6. So notice that everything is there. In fact, it autofills everything for you. As you can see, this is really cool. And if you want to update this, you could let's just put in some gibberish here and get rid of all of this, add in some gibberish. That's just it. And then put. So once you put, you notice that it updates immediately. How do you know that this is different? Check out the form. The form is different from what you already have before, and exactly what you have done before, you can delete this. So we are deleting this and it's gone. So if you try to do a refresh, it now tells you that no student matches the given query, different from what we had before. Initially, before now, if you tried to get a particular student that wasn't in the database, you get a huge error. But this time around, we'll have a better decorated error. But how simple can this get? I'll introduce you to generic views. So before we move, just here, what we'll be doing now is to make this as a one liner as possible. So notice that for the mixins here, we had to import up to 4 things, import up to 3 things, but here we can now import only one using what we call generic class views. And this is the game changer that we're talking about. So let's go back to our code here. Of course, we already have generics imported here for us. So let's come back here and just take the generic.list creates API view, and I'll show you the difference immediately. So let me overwrite what we have here in the students. So now, instead of having to import 3 things, they are all combined here: lists and creates API view. So there's no need importing up to 3 of them. And how about inside of here, you can now get rid of the other 2 functions. This is what generics do for you. So let's get rid of these 2. It only gets easier and simpler. Now for this one, we have 3. Remember, we are doing 3 functions here. One is the retrieve, the update, and destroy. So we have generics.retrieve, update, destroy, API view. Just the same thing. So let's replace what we have here already. Make it a one-liner. And of course, get rid of all these functions. So once you get rid of all these functions, you are cool. Now, will this work? Let's test it out. All right, so we are back here to test it. Do a refresh. We're still getting the same thing. Come back to students. You're getting the same thing. Let's fill this in. Fill something in. All right, so let's come here and type in something. Njoku pens, Njoku, like that, and do great guy, and make a post. So it creates it immediately, right? Let's retrieve what we have just created. So put in a 7, hit enter. Woof. It comes back. Next thing, we can update this. Let's just add a few numbers, stuff like that. Make a put, it updates, do a delete, and it works exactly as it should be. So now if you try to retrieve this again, it tells you no student matches the given query, and that is it. This is all you really need to know about class-based view. So with this, we can check this off and say we have done class-based view. Awesome. So that is really all you need to know about class-based view. And in the next part, we'll now be looking at view sets. So how does class-based view differ from view sets? I'll see you in the next one.